It's been a busy Easter break for the Prime Minister. Just after this meeting with the Ukrainian leader, he, along with his wife and his Chancellor, received fixed penalty notices. Tomorrow he's expected to deflect one with the other in a formal address to Parliament. The PM was fined last week for celebrations on his 56th birthday. Both he and the Chancellor told the Commons rules were never broken.
All guidance was followed completely during number 10.
I did not attend any parties.
A damaging poll today reflecting the impact of all of that on the man himself. When asked what they thought of Boris Johnson, 72% of the 2,000 people polled had a negative response. Only 16% responded positively about the Prime Minister. And when asked how to describe him, the poll showed that these were the words used most. A more mixed reaction from voters in the Conservative-held Tatton.
Do you know what? I'm sick to death of Partygate. It's happened. It's over. There are more important things in the world.
I don't think you can have trust in a leader who has broken the rules, says I haven't broken the rules, find out who's broken the rules, gets fixed penalty notices, or gets a fixed penalty notice, maybe more.
No, I won't vote again. I won't vote for... But on saying that, there's no way on earth I'd vote for Labour. So I actually haven't got anybody to vote for.
Faced with the prospect of not only more party fines, but potentially contempt of Parliament, the PM will first have to convince MPs before any of the public tomorrow.
Well, I think the Prime Minister's been clear about that, and in terms of the ministerial code as well. To the best of his knowledge, he thought he was in line with the rules that are there. Again, he's held his hands up. He said, I've got it wrong. I will apologise. I will pay the fine for that.
So the Prime Minister has lied, broken the law, ripped up the ministerial code. We think it's time for him to go. What I want to do is look in the eyes of the Conservative members of Parliament, because every time they defend him, they are debasing the sacrifices that the British people made. And every time they defend him, they are getting more and more caught up in his web of lies.
With local elections as well as a by-election on the horizon, pollsters like former Number 10 advisor James Johnson are looking at the long-term effects.
The longer this Partygate situation goes on for, with potentially more fines to come, Boris Johnson's brand is worsening and worsening. And when it comes to a national election, I think it's increasingly hard to see a situation in which Boris Johnson wins a majority for the Conservative Party again, even if the local elections in May actually aren't too bad.
With the potential for fines looming large, a crucial week back to work for the Prime Minister tomorrow. His tone, insiders say, will be a more defiant one.
Well, joining me now is Conservative peer Ed Vaizey, who was Culture Minister in David Cameron's government. Lord Vaizey, welcome to the programme. 72% of those polled had a negative opinion of the Prime Minister today, and liar was the word most commonly used. Does that trouble you?
Well, it doesn't trouble me because it's not an opinion poll about me. I mean, it will obviously trouble Boris Johnson and his team in Downing Street, but you've referred to the by-election and the local elections that are coming up, and it's a fashionable phrase for politicians to say the only poll that matters is the poll on election night. But in this case, I think it's true in the sense that the local election results are what Tory MPs are worried about, and they will look at those results and then I think decide in terms what steps they might want to take in the future. As you know, I've defended Boris Johnson over Partygate. I don't think that his crime is such that it means that he should resign, but clearly, you know, politicians are ruthless people and they will see if this translates into how voters turn out at the local elections.
And just to clarify, you have defended him over Partygate, but do you believe he did anything wrong?
Well, I don't, in the sense that I accept his version of events, and this famous phrase, being ambushed by a cake, has done the rounds. But you see Rishi Sunak getting a fine. It's quite clear that Rishi Sunak turned up at that event where a cake was present, and the police have taken a very strong view on this in terms of the fines that they have issued. But as I say, I think the key point for me is that people were working together in Downing Street, and although it sounds facetious, it's not meant to sound facetious, but I don't think the addition of a cake adds to, as it were, the dangerous nature of the situation in terms of spreading COVID. I think if people are working together in Downing Street, then that's the risk they're taking in spreading COVID, not whether or not they had cake at the event they were together at.
I mean, there are differing accounts of these parties. Some suggestions now that Boris Johnson perhaps initiated one of the parties. I don't want to get into all of that, but you do accept that there were tens of thousands of people around the country who were working together and not ambushing each other by a cake. So they do feel that Boris Johnson broke the lockdown rules, and the police clearly feel that Boris Johnson broke the lockdown rules.
Well, yeah, the police have concluded that by issuing the fines, but they've also concluded, as I say, that Rishi Sunak broke the lockdown rules, and I'm not sure that takes us much further. I think one can be very hard line on this. I mean, the story that broke today that Nicola Sturgeon was photographed without a mask and suddenly it's front page news. I wouldn't be on this programme calling on Nicola Sturgeon to resign. There's a photograph of Keir Starmer holding a beer at a work event, but I haven't gone on the news to try and say that Keir Starmer should somehow resign. I do think there has to be a sense of perspective. We have to look behind the rules. Michael Fabricant, the MP, got into trouble for saying that perhaps NHS workers had a drink. I would turn that around and say I wouldn't be coming on this programme demanding the resignation of NHS workers if after a 12-hour shift of working closely together, they decided that they were going to have a drink or a slice of cake. I think that one has to keep this in perspective, and the rules were there to stop the spread of COVID.
Okay.
And as I say, I can't see anything in terms of what we've heard that would have increased that risk in Downing Street.
Understood. Boris Johnson is due to face MPs tomorrow. Is he in any danger? He's still got a stonking majority, but we saw that Tory MPs were unhappy when this first broke. Does he face any danger, do you think?
Well, I think that this is a sort of day-to-day issue. I mean, I think the Prime Minister is in one sense in an unfortunate position in the sense that he's sort of fighting day-to-day as each story breaks and the mood of Tory MPs goes up and down depending on how intense the story is. On the other hand, and this is not meant to sound cynical, it's just an observation, in terms of how he's dealt with the issue in Ukraine, I think he's acquitted himself extremely well, and I think most MPs would agree with that. So it's quite clear people will be coming back from their Easter break, so I don't think there'll be a sort of febrile atmosphere in the Commons tomorrow, but they will be open-minded in terms of his performance, and if he gives a bad performance, that will add to his woes, and if he acquits himself well, particularly at the backbench meeting that will happen after he's been in the chamber, then I think he can move forward. But this story does keep coming back to him. It's not a great situation.